What do you imagine when you hear the phrase aviation legend? For many people, only one aircraft is associated with this title, the B-52. No matter how many new aircraft are produced, no one will be able to surpass the absolute power of the B-52. And even though it's 70 years old, the aircraft still receives cool updates.
Will probably be the most famous airplane ever.
The Boeing B-52 Stratofortress has been the main long-range aircraft of the U.S. Air Force for decades and will remain in service for at least another 20 years. You're probably wondering what the reason for such a long service life is. There's no other aircraft that can carry 70,500 pounds of projectiles and fly more than 8,700 miles without refueling. It can easily fly from Washington to Beijing across the Atlantic Ocean, and there's enough fuel to fly back.
The B-52 has now become a symbol of more than a bomber. It's a symbol of America's resolve.
To keep the B-52s in combat service, they receive regular repairs and modernization, which allows them to maintain the necessary technical condition for their next mission. By the way, the B-52 is the largest and heaviest combat aircraft of the U.S. Air Force. It has a wingspan of 183 feet and a length of 157 feet with a weight of 220 tons in full combat load. This answers the question of why the B-52s never used on aircraft carriers. Such a behemoth simply won't fit on deck. This is where we face the main problem with the B-52. Even with all its record-breaking performance, versatility, and power, even considering that few aircraft can match it, the Stratofortress is still not perfect. Because of its size, it's quite limited in certain actions, such as the case of an aircraft carrier, unlike the much smaller, less powerful, and less load-carrying MV-22 Osprey, which can perform the B-52's bombing mission while having some additional functions. In terms of basic capabilities, it can carry up to 9,900 pounds of cargo over a distance of 930 miles. The characteristics are clearly inferior to the B-52, but since the Osprey is a convertible aircraft, it can be used as an airborne helicopter. At any moment, you can land 24 armed Marines on an enemy base, and with proper skill, you can even do it unnoticed, because Osprey flies quietly. It can also carry bombs and guided missiles, but in much smaller quantities.
We modified the B-52D models with what we call the big belly modification to the point where between external and internal carriage.
At the same time, the MV-22 has dimensions of 85 feet by 59 feet and weighs only 21 tons. In addition, it can fold its wings and its size becomes even smaller. This is the main feature that made Osprey popular with the Marines. It's ideally suited for use on aircraft carriers such as the Gerald R. Ford. It can be used to replace airborne helicopters as it can hold up to 24 fully armed soldiers.
We don't need any type of air traffic control agency to get us there. We can do it ourselves.
In general, the MV-22B Osprey is one of the most interesting American aircraft, as it's a combination of an airplane and a helicopter. It was developed in response to the need to quickly deploy troops to hotspots during operations in Iraq and Afghanistan. What we have at the moment is a machine with a maximum speed of up to 310 miles per hour, with the ability to take off and land vertically, and with low fuel consumption. For example, the B-52 consumes 37,000 gallons of fuel for the longest flight possible. If you had this kind of fuel supply for your car, you could drive 1,250,000 miles. The B-52 consumes all this fuel in just one flight at a maximum speed of 650 miles per hour.
You know, it's almost like a sprinter ready to take off. And then you get moving.
The Osprey consumes at least 20 times less, so it's much more convenient from a resource-saving perspective. However, the B-52 is equipped with an in-flight refueling system, which offsets its huge fuel consumption. Such technology makes it possible to increase the duration and range of flight to incredible levels. In the previous years, experiments were conducted during which the bomber remained in the air for 45 hours in a row. During this time, the enemy could have shot it down, but they'd have to try hard because the aircraft is equipped with protection against interceptors and anti-aircraft missiles. Until the early 90s, all B-52Hs were equipped with 20mm M61 automatic cannons. Later, such equipment was abandoned in favor of other means of protection, such as heat traps, etc. Now there's talk that the bomber will soon be equipped with laser weapons. At the same time, the more modern Osprey is still able to surprise us. For example, it's capable of carrying an engine from an F-35 fighter jet in its internal compartment. No other helicopter can do this. This is incredible because Osprey can deliver engines for decked fighter jets directly to the Gerald R. Ford.
A lot of the future operation concepts of the Marine Corps are going to focus on the Osprey, doing more of what it does and doing it better.
The helicopter and the Gerald R. Ford even have something in common, namely laser weapons. The Osprey is equipped with a 50-kilowatt LAWS produced by Lockheed Martin. The system is used for protection because the aircraft does not have composite armor or anything like that. Instead, the laser is able to counter any threats such as missiles and projectiles no matter how fast they fly. But it'll be more difficult to cope with aircraft. The power of this laser is not enough to shoot down a fighter jet, but the Gerald R. Ford has enough power because it has the same system but 5 times larger. The 250 kilowatt LAWS 2 system is capable of destroying enemy aircraft in a matter of moments as it's powered by the nuclear reactors of the Gerald R. Ford aircraft carrier. These giants consume more than 120 tons of water per hour for cooling and produce 1,100 megawatts. This is enough to power any major city in the world.
There is a high bill up front for this carrier, without a doubt, as a first of class, but it is designed from the outset to operate more efficiently and to have greater availability due to the reduced maintenance requirements.
In addition, the Gerald R. Ford can hold up to 90 aircraft, among which more than half can be Ospreys, each armed with laser weapons and carrying 24 Marines. By combining the power with the capabilities of the B-52, we can get a truly versatile squad. The world's best bomber, whose power can only be rivaled by a fool, the largest aircraft carrier armed to the teeth, and a unique convertible airplane designed for any combat mission. Let's imagine how they would act together on a combat mission in Israel, because the Gerald R. Ford is just now in the Mediterranean. Realizing the seriousness of the threat, the command of the Gerald R. Ford can request the nearest military air base, in Sirlik Air Base in Turkey, to send B-52s for support. A bomber flying at full speed of 650 miles per hour would take only half an hour to reach Israel. At the same time, the aircraft carrier is putting a dozen Ospreys with Marines and laser guns on alert. As soon as they fly out of the radar jammer's range, the enemy will immediately notice them and try to shoot down the air group with an accurate missile. But the LAWS 2 laser system will shoot it down on approach. At approximately the same minute, the B-52 and the Osprey will arrive at the point where the enemy has dug in and established a base. Of course, as soon as the enemy sees a dozen aircraft in sight, it'll immediately start shooting them down with air defense, and the main target will be Stratofortress. Here again, Osprey lasers will come to the rescue, which will be able to neutralize all threats after a short recharge time. The B-52 at full speed from an altitude of 49,200 feet will open fire with ammunition that will fall like hail on the enemy base. Perhaps only the main command center will survive, but it'll be stormed by Osprey Marines. The only thing left to do is get reinforcements, which will definitely come to the rescue, but then the Israeli army will step in. Their latest F-35 will be glad to take on airborne enemies, and the Iron Dome air defense system will protect the Allies from possible missile attacks. Merkava tanks with their Lahat guided missiles and impenetrable armor will be used against the ground army. If the US and Israeli armies unite, no enemy will be able to resist them, because Osprey, B-52, Ford, and others will cope with the threat very easily. This is the end of the video. Subscribe to the channel if you like the video, and also don't forget to express your opinion with likes and comments that we read carefully. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.